The weight of desperation. Captain Marcus Steele stood at the massive viewport of the orbital negotiation platform, watching the Krillian diplomatic vessel approach through the void. The alien ship resembled a crystalline cathedral, its translucent hull refracting starlight into impossible colors that human eyes struggled to process. After 40 years of complete isolation following humanity's disastrous first contact attempt, this meeting represented Earth's last hope for survival. The planet below was dying, not from war or plague, but from simple mathematics. 7 billion humans had consumed their world's resources faster than anyone had predicted. The rare Earth elements needed for advanced technology were nearly gone. The fusion reactors that powered their cities required helium-3 that Earth couldn't produce in sufficient quantities. Without access to the galactic trade networks, humanity would regress to a pre-technological state within a generation. Marcus adjusted his dress uniform and tried to project confidence he didn't feel. At 52, he had commanded 3 different starships and survived the brutal border wars with the automated mining fleets. His weathered face bore scars from a dozen battles, and his steel-gray eyes had seen enough death to fill several lifetimes. But nothing in his military career had prepared him for the pressure of this moment. The fate of his entire species rested on the negotiations that were about to begin. The alien delegation arrives. The airlock cycled open with a hiss that seemed to echo through the station. High Trader Vexthul emerged first, his reptilian form draped in flowing robes that shifted color with each movement. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, the Krillian possessed the casual arrogance that came from representing a civilization that controlled half the known galaxy. His yellow eyes held the cold calculation of a merchant who had never made a deal that didn't favor his own interests. Behind Vexthul came representatives from 4 other species. Marcus recognized them from the intelligence briefings he had studied for months. The insectoid Chitauri delegate clicked its mandibles in what passed for polite greeting among their kind. A Vorthon floated in its environmental suit, tentacles writhing with barely contained excitement. The hulking Goran warrior stood silent and imposing, while a slender Nexari observer recorded everything with devices that Marcus couldn't begin to understand. Vexthul spoke in perfect English, though his voice carried harmonic undertones that made the words sound hollow and artificial. Captain Steele, we extend greetings from the Galactic Trade Consortium. Your species has requested membership in our organization, along with access to the technologies and resources necessary for your continued survival. Marcus nodded respectfully, though every instinct told him to be wary. These beings hadn't traveled across interstellar space out of kindness. They wanted something from humanity, and experience had taught him that aliens rarely offered fair trades to species they considered inferior. The desperate bargain, Dr. Sarah Chen, Earth's chief xenologist, stepped forward to handle the initial diplomatic protocols. Her small frame and gentle demeanor concealed one of the sharpest minds in human space. She had spent decades studying alien cultures through intercepted communications and black market data purchases. If anyone could navigate the complex social dynamics of galactic politics, it was Sarah. We appreciate the consortium's willingness to consider humanity for membership, she said carefully. Our species offers unique perspectives and capabilities that could benefit all member civilizations. The Chitauri delegate clicked rapidly, a sound that the universal translator interpreted as laughter. Perspectives, yes. But what do you offer of value? Your technology is primitive. Your manufacturing capacity is limited. Your military is non-existent by galactic standards. Marcus felt his jaw clench. The insect was right about humanity's military weakness, but calling them primitive stung. Humans had developed interstellar flight, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing without any outside help. They might be newcomers to the galactic scene, but they weren't helpless children. Vexthul raised a clawed hand for silence. Now, the humans possess one resource that remains valuable. Their world contains significant deposits of rare minerals that the consortium requires for various purposes. Titanium, platinum, and certain isotopes that are becoming increasingly scarce throughout the galaxy. Sarah exchanged a quick glance with Marcus. They had expected this. Earth's mineral wealth was the only thing that made humanity interesting to the galactic powers. The question was how much they would have to pay for the technology they needed to survive. "What terms are you proposing?" Marcus asked bluntly. Military training had taught him that sometimes direct action worked better than diplomatic dancing. The poisoned offer. Vexthal activated a holographic display that filled the space between them. Images of sleek starships rotated slowly in the air, their hulls gleaming with advanced weapons and defensive systems. Marcus counted 15 vessels of various sizes, from nimble escorts to massive battlecruisers that dwarfed anything in Earth's fleet. "The consortium is prepared to offer your species a complete naval package," the Krillian announced. 15 warships from our reserve fleets. These vessels have served with distinction for many cycles and represent techno-series. Logi centuries ahead of your current capabilities. The ships looked impressive enough. Marcus could see weapon arrays that bristled with alien technology, shields that shimmered with energy, and hull designs that suggested capabilities far beyond human engineering. But something about Vexathoul's tone bothered him. There was an undertone there, like a merchant selling defective goods to customers who wouldn't know the difference. "What condition are these ships in?" Dr. Chen asked. Her scientific training made her naturally skeptical of claims that seemed too good to be true. "Fully functional," Vexthoul replied smoothly. "Some minor maintenance may be required, as is normal with any complex technology, but I assure you these vessels will serve your needs adequately." The Vorthon delegates' tentacles twitched in what Marcus had learned was their equivalent of a smile. The universal translator picked up a whispered comment that was probably meant to be private. "Adequately for primitives who wouldn't recognize a proper warship if it fired on them." Marcus pretended not to hear, but he filed the comment away for later consideration. The aliens clearly didn't respect humanity's technical capabilities. That might work to Earth's advantage if they underestimated what humans could accomplish with the right tools. The price of survival. "And in return?" Sarah asked, though they all knew what was coming. Vexthal's display changed to show a detailed breakdown of Earth's mineral resources. The numbers were staggering: exclusive mining rights to virtually every rare element deposit on the planet. A 50-year contract that would strip Earth's crust of everything valuable while giving humanity a tiny percentage of the profits. 50 years is a very long time, Marcus said carefully. Our species has concerns about maintaining sovereignty over our home world. "Sovereignty is a luxury for species that can defend themselves," the Goran warrior rumbled. It was the first time the massive alien had spoken, and his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "Your sun could nova tomorrow, and the galaxy would barely notice. The consortium offers you relevance. The price is reasonable." Marcus wanted to argue, but the alien was right. Humanity had exactly 12 functional warships, all of them built with technology that was laughably obsolete by galactic standards. They couldn't fight the consortium even if they wanted to. They couldn't survive without access to galactic resources and technology. They had no choice but to accept whatever terms were offered. "We'll need to inspect the ships before finalizing any agreement," Dr. Chen said. "Our engineers will want to verify their condition and capabilities." Vexthoul's eyes glittered with what might have been amusement. "Of course. We insist upon complete transparency in all our dealings. A shuttle is being prepared to transport your inspection team to the holding facility." The inspection, Chief Engineer Elena Rodriguez had volunteered to lead the technical assessment team. At 38, she was the youngest person to ever hold the position of Chief Engineer in the Earth Defense Fleet. Her reputation for solving impossible problems had earned her the nickname Miracle Worker among her peers. If anyone could evaluate alien technology and determine its true worth, it was Elena. The shuttle trip to the alien holding facility took 4 hours. Elena spent the time studying every detail of the Krillian transport, from the way its artificial gravity systems operated to the strange crystalline displays that showed navigation data in patterns that hurt to look at directly. This was only the 3rd time humans had been aboard an active alien vessel, and every observation might prove crucial later. The holding facility was built inside a hollowed asteroid, creating a massive hangar that could accommodate ships of all sizes. The 15 vessels promised to Earth floated in the zero-gravity environment, held in position by energy fields that created a soft blue glow around each hull. Elena's first impression was positive. The ships looked sleek and modern, their hulls gleaming under the artificial lighting. But as their inspection pod moved closer to the nearest vessel, she began to notice details that made her stomach clench with worry. The hull plating was covered in a fine network of stress fractures that had been carefully painted over to hide their extent. What looked like battle scars from a distance revealed themselves to be corrosion damage that had eaten deep into the ship's structure. Entire sections showed signs of hasty repair work, using materials that clearly didn't match the original construction. Commander Rodriguez called Lieutenant Tom Walker, her assistant engineer. "You need to see this." Elena guided their pod to where Tom was scanning the ship's power systems. The readings on his instruments made her blood run cold. The fusion reactor that should have been producing enough energy to power a small city was operating at barely 12% capacity. The containment fields that kept the plasma stable were being held together with what appeared to be alien duct tape. "These aren't retired warships," Elena whispered. "These are derelicts waiting to be scrapped." The terrible truth. As they moved from ship to ship, the pattern became clear. Every vessel in the collection was a barely functional wreck that had been hastily disguised to hide its true condition. Missing weapon systems had been replaced with obvious replicas that wouldn't fool anyone with technical knowledge. Life support systems had been stripped out and sold subpars, leaving empty compartments where critical equipment should have been installed. But as Elena examined the underlying technology, she began to notice something that the aliens had apparently overlooked. The basic design principles were centuries ahead of human engineering, but they operated on quantum mechanics theories that Earth scientists had only recently begun to understand. More importantly, the technology seemed to be designed for minds that worked very differently from human brains. The aliens approached problems with rigid logical pathways, creating systems that functioned efficiently but couldn't adapt to unexpected situations. Human creativity, on the other hand, excelled at finding unconventional solutions to complex problems. Elena began to suspect that these worthless ships might contain possibilities that their original creators had never imagined. "Lieutenant Walker," she said quietly, "start downloading everything you can from these systems. Technical manuals, operational procedures, maintenance records, everything." "Yes, ma'am." "But Commander, these ships are basically space-worthy coffins. Why are we accepting them?" Elena looked around at the collection of dying vessels and felt a spark of excitement that she couldn't quite explain. "Because sometimes the best raw materials come from the most unexpected sources. These ships might not be what the aliens think they're selling us." The reluctant agreement. Back aboard the negotiation platform, Marcus listened to Elena's report with growing frustration. The aliens had essentially offered humanity a collection of space junk in exchange for half a century of mineral rights. It was insulting, degrading, and absolutely typical of how galactic civilization treated younger species. But Earth had no choice. Without access to galactic technology and resources, humanity would slowly strangle on its own waste and resource depletion. These broken ships represented the only path to survival, and even if that path looked impossibly difficult. "We accept the consortium's generous offer," Marcus said formally, though the words tasted like poison in his mouth. Vexthul's smile revealed rows of sharp teeth that gleamed like polished ivory. "Excellent. The contracts are prepared for immediate signature. I'm certain these vessels will serve your species adequately for many cycles to come." The other alien delegates were less subtle in their satisfaction. The Chitauri's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Elena now recognized as laughter. The Vorthan's tentacles writhed with barely contained glee. Even the normally stoic Goran showed signs of amusement at humanity's desperate situation. As Marcus signed the documents that traded away Earth's mineral wealth for a collection of space scrap, he caught fragments of alien conversation that the universal translators weren't meant to pick up. Words like primitives and wouldn't know a warship from a garbage scow drifted through the air like poison gas. But Elena noticed something else in the way Vexathul handled the transaction. The Krillian was so focused on his own cleverness that he never bothered to ask detailed questions about human engineering capabilities or technical knowledge. He simply assumed that primitives would remain primitive, regardless of what tools they were given. That assumption, Elena realized, might prove to be the aliens' greatest mistake. Seeds of Revolution. The transfer of the 15 ships to human space took 3 weeks. Elena supervised every step of the process, documenting the true condition of each vessel while her teams began the seemingly impossible task of making them functional. The work was dangerous, exhausting, and often demoralizing, but slowly patterns began to emerge. The alien technology wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary. Energy systems that operated on principles Earth's physicists were only beginning to understand. Hull materials that could adapt to stress in ways that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Weapon systems that manipulated gravity itself rather than relying on conventional projectiles or energy beams. Most importantly, the technology had been designed by minds that valued efficiency over adaptability. The aliens had created systems that worked perfectly under ideal conditions, but couldn't handle unexpected variables. Human engineering, shaped by centuries of making do with limited resources, excelled at exactly the kind of creative problem-solving that these systems needed. As the ships were towed to the secret research facility Elena had established in the outer system, she began to suspect that the consortium had made a terrible miscalculation. They had assumed that selling broken technology to primitives would result in nothing more than expensive scrap metal. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to potentially revolutionize everything they thought they knew about starship design. The real work was just beginning. The hidden laboratory. 6 months after the humiliating transaction with the Galactic Trade Consortium, the Titan research facility buzzed with activity that would have amazed even the most optimistic human observers. Built inside a network of connected asteroids in the outer system, the facility had been designed to remain completely hidden from alien surveillance. The 15 worthless ships that Earth had purchased were now the centerpieces of the most ambitious engineering project in human history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the main laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the inner workings of technology that shouldn't have been possible. Her dark hair was reeked with premature gray from months of 18-hour workdays, but her eyes burned with the intensity of someone who had glimpsed possibilities beyond imagination. The broken alien ships were revealing secrets that revolutionized everything humans thought they knew about physics. The first breakthrough had come when Elena realized that what the aliens called corroded hull plating was actually a metamaterial that responded to stress by reorganizing its molecular structure. The corrosion wasn't decay, it was adaptation. The hull was trying to repair itself but lacked the proper energy inputs to complete the process. When Elena's team provided those inputs using modified human fusion technology, the results were extraordinary. Dr. James Morrison, the facility's chief physicist, emerged from the quantum analysis chamber with excitement radiating from every gesture. "Elena, you have to see this. The power core from Ship 7 isn't just producing energy, it's creating localized space-time distortions that amplify the output by a factor of 12. Elena followed James to his workstation, where complex equations filled multiple holographic displays. The numbers should have been impossible, but the experimental data supported every calculation. The alien power systems operated by tapping directly into the quantum foam that underlied reality itself. They weren't just fusion reactors. They were doorways to unlimited energy. Human creativity unleashed. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Sarah Kim had been assigned to the project despite having no formal engineering training. Her background was in cognitive psychology, and she had been brought in to help human crews interface with alien control systems. But Sarah's unique perspective allowed her to see patterns that the engineers had missed completely. "Phoenix 1 to control," Jackson reported over the communication system. "All systems show green, requesting permission to begin flight test sequence." Elena's voice crackled back through the speakers. "Permission granted, Phoenix. Take it slow on the first run. We're not sure how the modifications will behave under full power." Jackson engaged the propulsion system and felt the ship respond with eager anticipation. The fusion drives that provided conventional thrust were merely backup systems now. The primary propulsion worked by manipulating local spacetime, creating a bubble of altered physics around the ship. As Jackson eased the controls forward, Phoenix 1 didn't accelerate. It simply redefined its relationship with the surrounding universe. The test flight lasted only 30 minutes, but those 30 minutes rewrote humanity's understanding of what was possible. Phoenix 1 achieved speeds that should have required months to reach, performed maneuvers that should have torn any material apart, and demonstrated weapons capabilities that made every ship in the Earth Defense Fleet obsolete overnight. "Control, I'm reading impossible numbers here," Jackson reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "The gravitic weapons aren't just firing projectiles, they're rewriting local physics. I just made a target asteroid forget how to maintain molecular cohesion." The galaxy takes notice. News of unusual human activities in the outer system began reaching alien intelligence networks within weeks. The Krillian Trade Consortium maintained surveillance satellites throughout human space, partly to monitor their new mining investments, and partly out of general suspicion about what primitives might do with advanced technology. High Trader Vex Thule received the first reports with typical alien arrogance. "Impossible," he declared when his intelligence chief showed him Nergy readings from the Human Research Facility. "These primitives barely understand basic fusion technology. They cannot possibly be generating power signatures of this magnitude." But the reports kept coming. Gravitational anomalies that suggested advanced spacetime manipulation, energy discharges that exceeded the output of most alien battle fleets. Worst of all, transportation signatures that indicated the humans had somehow achieved faster-than-light travel, using principles that violated every known law of physics. The Chitauri delegate who had participated in the original negotiations clicked his mandibles nervously as he reviewed the latest intelligence summary. "High Trader, perhaps we should investigate these reports more thoroughly. The humans may have discovered something we overlooked in the ships we sold them." Vex Thule's laugh was harsh and dismissive. "Nonsense. Those ships were worthless derelicts that we would have scrapped anyway. If the humans want to waste their resources trying to repair them, that's their choice. Even if they somehow manage to get one or two vessels functional, they lack the knowledge to use them effectively." The Krillians' confidence was shared throughout the galactic community. Humanity was a primitive species that had stumbled onto the galactic stage barely capable of interstellar travel. The idea that they could revolutionize technology that had taken other civilizations millennia to develop was simply absurd. The Phoenix fleet emerges. While the aliens dismissed human achievements as impossible rumors, Elena's teams were working miracles that bordered on the supernatural. One by one, the 15 worthless ships were transformed into vessels that represented the pinnacle of engineering achievement. Each ship incorporated lessons learned from the previous restoration, creating a fleet that was greater than the sum of its parts. The Phoenix fleet, as it came to be known, didn't just repair alien technology. It improved upon it in ways the original creators had never considered. Human creativity and alien engineering combined to produce capabilities that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of reality. Ship designs that should have been impossible to maneuver became graceful dancers in the void, capable of changing direction without regard for momentum or inertia. Weapon systems that had been designed for straightforward combat applications were modified to serve dozens of different purposes, from precision mining tools to terraforming equipment. Most remarkably, the ships developed what could only be described as personalities. The hybrid human-alien interfaces created a form of artificial intelligence that was neither purely logical like alien systems nor purely intuitive like human consciousness. Instead, they achieved a synthesis that combined the best aspects of both approaches. Commander Hayes, now serving as the fleet's senior pilot, discovered that Phoenix 1 could anticipate his intentions before he consciously formed them. The ship's artificial intelligence learned from his flying patterns, his tactical preferences, and even his emotional responses to different situations. The result was a partnership between human and machine that achieved capabilities neither could manage alone. The demonstration. The moment that changed everything came when a Krillian patrol fleet arrived in human space to investigate the impossible energy readings their sensors had detected. High Trader Vexthul himself commanded the expedition, confident that he would find nothing more than primitive humans playing with technology they couldn't understand. The Krillian fleet consisted of 12 modern warships, each one representing the cutting edge of galactic military technology. Their combined firepower would have destroyed Earth's entire defense fleet without taking significant damage. Vexthul expected to find broken alien hulks drifting powerlessly in space, perhaps with human crews trapped inside systems they couldn't operate. Instead, he found Phoenix 1 waiting for them at the edge of human space. Unknown vessel, Vexthul transmitted on standard diplomatic frequencies. You are operating in violation of consortium technology transfer agreements. Surrender immediately for inspection and confiscation of illegally modified equipment. Jackson Hayes's response came back with infuriating calm. Krillian Fleet, this is Commander Hayes of the Earth Defense Force ship Phoenix 1. You are entering human sovereign space without permission. Please state your intentions or withdraw immediately. Vexthul's rage was incandescent. These primitives dared to threaten a consortium battle fleet? He activated his ship's weapon systems and prepared to demonstrate the consequences of human arrogance. All ships, open fire, disable that vessel, and prepare boarding parties. 12 alien warships unleashed a barrage that should have vaporized any target within a light second. Energy beams, particle cannons, and gravitational warheads converged on Phoenix 1's position with enough force to crack a small moon. The weapons passed harmlessly through empty space. Phoenix 1 had simply ceased to exist in the same dimensional framework as its attackers. The new reality, Jackson Hayes allowed the alien weapons to exhaust themselves before bringing Phoenix 1 back into normal space. The ship materialized directly above the Krillian flagship, close enough that Vexthul could see the human vessel's hull through his viewport. Was that supposed to accomplish something? Jackson asked conversationally. Before Vexthul could respond, Phoenix 1 demonstrated capabilities that redefined the aliens' understanding of what was possible. The human ship didn't fire weapons, it simply expressed displeasure with the local physics. One Krillian vessel found its hull plating rearranged into artistic patterns that spelled out surrender in 15 different languages. Another discovered that its artificial gravity had been inverted, leaving the crew floating helplessly against the ceiling. The most unsettling demonstration involved the flagship itself. Phoenix 1 reached out with invisible forces and gently rotated the massive Krillian ship 90 degrees on its axis, then returned it to its original position. The message was clear. The humans could have done anything they wanted to the alien fleet, but had chosen mercy instead. Vexthul stared at his instruments in disbelief. The power required to manipulate a ship of his vessel's mass should have been detectable from across the solar system, but Phoenix 1 showed no energy expenditure, no heat buildup, no signs of strain. The human ship had casually demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything in the Krillian arsenal while making it look effortless. How? Was all Vexthul could manage. Jackson's voice carried a note of amusement that made the alien's scales crawl. You sold us the tools, remember? We just figured out how to use them properly. The transformation. The news spread through galactic civilization like wildfire. Humanity, the primitive species that barely qualified for client status, had somehow transformed a collection of worthless derelicts into the most advanced fleet in known space. The implications were staggering and terrifying to species that had grown comfortable with their place in the galactic hierarchy. Elena Rodriguez became the most famous human in the galaxy overnight. Scientists from dozens of species requested permission to study her work, while military leaders desperately tried to understand how their technological advantages had evaporated in a matter of months. The miracle worker had indeed worked miracles, but not in any way the aliens had anticipated. The Phoenix fleet continued to grow as more human crews learned to interface with the hybrid technology. Each new ship pushed the boundaries further, incorporating innovations that built upon previous discoveries. What had started as an act of desperation became a revolution that transformed humanity from galactic laughingstock to a power that demanded respect. High Trader Vexthul found himself facing the greatest humiliation of his long career. The clever deal that was supposed to extract valuable resources from primitive humans in exchange for worthless scrap had instead armed them with capabilities that threatened the existing order. The Krillian Trade Consortium's technological superiority, maintained for thousands of years, had been shattered by a species they had dismissed as children. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was in humanity itself. The desperate species that had been willing to trade away their homeworld's resources for a chance at survival had become something entirely new. They had learned to think beyond the limitations that confined other species, to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere in the depths of space, more alien hulks drifted forgotten and abandoned, waiting for human creativity to give them new life and impossible purpose. The age of humanity had begun,